Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
Welcome to Rex Sikes Movie Beat, conversations with filmmakers where we discuss everything film and television. Here on Movie Beat, you learn what to do and what not to do when it comes to making movies and TV, and we will talk to everyone behind the scenes and in front of the camera, and they'll provide you with guests and the information you're going to want to have, whether you're a filmmaker or a fan. And so now let's move behind the scenes here at Movie Beat. My guest today is Jack Marchetti. He is a filmmaker, screenwriter in Chicago. We're going to be talking with him in just a moment and about his Kickstarter campaign and about his project and about things going on in his life. So stay tuned. Right now the chat room is open. If you're listening live, you can join us in the chat room. Obviously, if you're listening to this as a recorded show, an archive show, that option is not available to you. I encourage live tweeting during the shows, whether they're recorded shows or whether they're you're actually listening while we're recording it. The official web address for Rex Sikes Movie Beat is rexsikes.com. That's my name. It's Rex Sikes. I'm your host, so rexsikes.com. All of these interviews, over 300 hours of professional filmmakers sharing their expertise with you, their nuts and bolts, what to do, what not to do, how to get things done easier, faster, smoother, with less hassle, is all available at the interviews blog at rexsikes.com. So go and listen to these shows. Go and listen to the archive shows. There is a wealth of valuable information there for you. If you're a filmmaker, screenwriter, an actor, whatever you are in the entertainment business, you're going to want to go and check that out. So please do continue to listen and continue to share and spread these. Invite other people to listen right now while you're listening. And do so however you can, phone, email, Twitter, and have them join us. I've got just a couple of things I'm going to say, and then I'm going to tell you about Jack. As you may have known, one of the movies that I co-produced and line-produced, Girls Gone Dead, opened on the 17th of July, 2012, and very rapidly became the #1 horror film on DVD and video on demand. Flying off the shelves, became an Amazon top seller. It was high up on the list of all of the video on demand places. Brick and mortar stores couldn't keep it on their shelves. It became 51 of all movies ever made on IMDb for a week or two, and now it's slipped, but it's still within the top 500 of all of the movies searched for by the millions and millions and millions of people on IMDb. So we're very proud, very pleased of the success that movie is having. I'm continuing to film on the movie Serum, and you can join us at the Facebook page, Serum the Movie, on Facebook. Without any further hesitation, let me introduce to you my guest today. Jack Marchetti is a screenwriter and a director, and he's losing his vision. And he has a dream to direct his feature film before this happens. Jack is crowdfunding right now to make his dream come true. Four of a Kind is a gritty crime drama that takes place in Chicago. Now, growing up in Chicago in a rough neighborhood gave screenwriter Moretti some strong insights into how to best portray and reveal his characters. And now, weeks into his Kickstarter campaign, Jack has received some nice shout-outs from actors Matthew Lillard and Holt Boggs and writer Neil Gaiman. The filmmaking community has rallied behind this particular campaign because it is a solid script and has an inspiring backstory. Actress, producer Liz Friedman, the LA Inc., introduced him to Dan DeStefano, who will produce Four of a Kind when the Kickstarter campaign is successful. DeStefano worked at Paramount as an assistant to the VP of Productions, also with the Weinstein Company as well. I believe there's a VP of television. Jack, or as an assistant to the VP of television, Jack and Liz Friedman worked together on the screenplay All I Want for Christmas, which was optioned by Lighthouse Pictures in 2011. Four of a Kind, the current screenplay that Jack is wanting to produce and direct and get made, was a top 100 finalist in Project Greenlight in Season 3, beating out over 4,000 other screenplays. The screenplay failed to advance further, but the issue of losing his eyesight pressures Jack to get it produced. He was diagnosed with cone rod dystrophy, a genetic eye disease that causes blindness at an early age. Unpredictable, it can move slowly or take someone's vision very rapidly. Jack's older brother has already lost his vision to the very same disease. And knowing that the disease is progressing and unpredictable, Jack decided to take matters into his own hand. He's attempting to run a Kickstarter campaign and to shoot his screenplay before completely losing his vision. He would like to be able to make the film and see the completed project with his own two eyes. And so without any further hesitation, join me in welcoming Jack to the show. Jack, hi, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm glad we got you here. All right, and the chat room again is open. If you're listening to this live, or if you're in the chat room again, please do invite other people to listen, and please contact or tweet and share it and get people to tune in. So, how you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm okay. I get one of these summer colds, so if I sound a little scratchy, that's the reason. Well, let me ask you first about the eyes and about this disorder. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's called cone rod dystrophy, and it's a degenerative retinal disease, similar in the vein to what's somewhat more known, but probably still it's not really as common. It's called retinitis pigmentosa, which is kind of like the group name for degenerative retinal diseases. People like Steve Wynn of Wynn Casino, he has it. Kevin
Can I interrupt you for a second? Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're getting like some staticky kind of, or echoey kind of stuff going on.
Okay. Do you want me to call back in?
No, that's better. That's better. Whatever. I don't know if there's a change or whatever, but suddenly it's a little better. You were mentioning.
Right. So it's called cone rod dystrophy, and basically what that means is in the back of your eye and your retina there are photoreceptors called cones and rods, and those basically are light receptors. So in my disease, they basically cease to function correctly. I'm not entirely sure if they completely die off or if they just stop working. And it's a genetic condition. There's no treatment for it. There's no cure. There's basically nothing you can do with it. At this point, it's kind of like a waiting game. Now, there's certain things you can do just to stay healthy, such as quit smoking, try and exercise more, things along those lines. And some have suggested going on like a vitamin A regimen, things along those lines. Some studies have shown that can delay the disease for up to 10 years. However, high doses of vitamin A can lead to liver failure. So it's a kind of pick your poison kind of deal. And my eye doctor, who I see on an annual basis, has basically said to not even bother going that route because it's just the possibility of destroying your liver is probably worse than potentially losing your eyesight or whatever. I don't know necessarily how I feel about that one, but so I was diagnosed when I was 6 years old. I didn't really realize it was a bigger deal. At first I thought I couldn't see the chalkboard, and I needed glasses to help see in class. I didn't really realize that it was a potentially, really debilitating condition until I was 13 when I wanted to get contact lenses. And I went to some like Pearl Vision or something like that, and the doctor wanted me to read the 20/20 line, and I'm not correctable to 20/20. With my glasses on, I can read probably the 20/50/60 line. With contacts in, however, I can read like 20/30. I'm much more visually acute with contact lenses in. But so the first time I went to go get contacts, he was trying to get me to read the 20/20 line, and I couldn't read it. And the doctor got really, really pissed at me and said I was being immature, and called my mother in and said, your son isn't mature enough for this, blah, blah, blah. And my mom said, well, he has cone rod dystrophy. He can't read the 20/20 line. And the look on the doctor's face kind of just said it all. He was like, oh, that's why, my bad. I feel really bad for you now. Let me apologize. And this was in 1993, so I couldn't Google what cone rod dystrophy was. And, I was basically just told it's a disease that's basically going to basically start off with very bad night vision. So I'm going to have night blindness. And then I'm going to have at the later stages of the disease, you get extreme tunnel vision as your peripheral vision completely goes away. And then it basically comes down to the point where it's almost like you're looking through a very tiny straw. And then in very extreme versions of the disease, you lose your macula goes, so you have no central vision either. So all intents and purposes, you're basically blind. And that's kind of where my brother is right now. His vision was always much better than mine, and then just a few years ago, it just went on him really fast. And
wow,
he uses a cane now. He was starting to learn Braille. He was going to a school for the blind to learn mobility, how to navigate the world better with such such visual loss. And it was it's pretty scary because you can't tell you're getting taller, right? So it's often I can't really tell if my vision is getting worse or not. I've always known since I was a teenager that my night vision was really bad. So going to bars or dark restaurants is really bad because I just can't. I might as well have my eyes closed if I'm in a dark, most nice restaurants are very dark. I can barely see the table. So those are the only instances where I really feel handicapped. So I try and avoid those as much as humanly possible. And just kind of seeing where what happened with my brother, and it's kind of looking into the future and seeing, he's only 3 years older than I am. And I asked my eye doctor the last couple times I saw him was, is that going to be me? Am I 3 years away from, needing the cane, not being able to really, be as independent as I am now? And he just said he didn't know. They don't know why his went so quickly. They don't know why mine might be stale. It's entirely possible this is as bad as it gets. And if this is as bad as it gets, I'll take it because I'm still I can still see relatively well. My night vision is still really bad, but, I still get around. I still, can work. I still drive typically during the day. I try and avoid night driving as much as possible. But all those things my brother can't do anymore. He doesn't drive. He's on disability. And so it was the proverbial, kind of seeing where he is right now and possibly being there and not knowing when, could it happen a year from now, could it happen months from now. That whole not knowing was kind of the proverbial kick in the ass to try and get this movie made, while not only I could have the wherewithal and the ability to see it on set and direct it and have the capacity to do it, but then this being my favorite script I ever wrote, the ability to see it once it actually is once it is produced.
Very, very cool. Wow. Well, that is an amazing life journey to have, and the goal that you want. You've written this screenplay, and I want to talk to you about that in a minute. Is it your plan to direct it or to get someone to direct it?
I plan on the idea would be for me to direct it. However, I've never directed anything before, so I'm not even sure A, if I enjoy doing it, and B, if I'd be any good at it. Any writer, any screenwriter, I'm assuming when they write the script, they're directing it in their head. So as they set up the scene description, set up the dialogue, and you don't put camera angles or anything in a spec screenplay, but you kind of write it so that you only give the director a way you want to see the film as you write your action scenes and description. So I've directed it in my head. I just have no idea if being on a set or if I'd be any good at it. So ideally, I'd love to direct it. I think I'd be great at it. I've seen the movie a billion times in my head. I kind of know exactly, the type of film I'm looking to make. But then, like I said, I've never done it before. So if I realize somewhere along the lines, during pre-production, that this just isn't something that maybe fits my personality, or, fits my skill set, I wouldn't hesitate to then try and find like there's some talented directors in Chicago that I could reach out to and either get them to come on board and maybe direct it themselves or just co-direct it with me. Just because at this point I've never directed anything, so I don't think that would happen. I think I'd actually really enjoy it, and I think I would do hopefully a really good job at it. But like I said, I don't really know at this point.
Well, let's talk that, I understand that, and let's talk about the screenplay itself. This screenplay, before we get into the kind of the story and how it came about and everything, I mentioned in the biography that it was a finalist in Project Greenlight in season 3.
Right.
Talk about that experience. In other words, when do you know what they're looking for? When you do a show like that, do you know their criteria for selection? What are the kinds of things that you faced, in going through that process?
Sure. So, in case anyone doesn't remember, Project Greenlight was a screenwriting competition started by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, where the original concept was screenwriters submit their work. If they win, they direct their movie. Season 1 did that, and it didn't turn out very well, so they switched it into a writing-directing competition. Season 2 didn't turn out that great either, so in season 3, they basically said, look, we'll accept any submission, but we're looking for either a horror movie or a genre-specific thriller type thing. Basically because the first 2 seasons were coming-of-age stories that didn't do well at all. They were okay movies, but they just didn't do well at all. They produced much better television than they did films. So when they put that out there, because I had just started writing screenplays, or trying to write screenplays, when season 2 came on. And then when they announced that they were looking for entrants for season 3, I'm not out yet. I hadn't written this script for it yet, and the genesis of the idea for this story came while I was writing something else. A buddy of mine, I think we were having coffee at 3 in the morning or something like that, and he had an idea for a mob movie, for a crime movie, and we both kind of came up with the idea together, and I went off and in about 2 weeks wrote a first draft. Came back to him. We worked on it a little bit here and there, polished it up a little bit, and then just submitted it to the contest without any even remote idea that I thought it was good. I didn't think at the time, considering I hadn't really had any sort of real feedback or anything like that on my writing at that point. I had some people who I knew liked it, but you can't really judge people to give you an honest appraisal of something like that because they're more concerned about your feelings. So we submitted it, and the way the season 3 competition worked was there were, I think, 4,300 scripts submitted. You had to do peer review to narrow it down to the top 1,000. So each person who submitted a script had to read 3 other scripts and rate them. So went through that, and then a month later they named the top 1,000, which we were obviously a part of. And that, I thought, after reading some of the other scripts that I had gone through, because I think I ended up reading, you only had to review 3 of them. I think I reviewed about 8 or 9 of them. And, not to say that, mine was so much superior to others. I just, compared to what I was reading, I thought ours should make at least the top 1,000, which we did. So that was really cool. That was the first sort of, okay, someone thinks. And one of the other cool things was you would get the reviews people had done on your script at that point. So you got to see what other people had rated you, and you got to see people's reviews of you. So, there were a few people that, I think famously, or not famously, but famously to me at least, someone had said, one of their reviews was, don't quit your day job, or whatever, which was thanks. But there were several reviews in there that really got what we were going for, because the ending is not a Hollywood ending by any means. And there were people like, I'm so pissed off the way this thing ended. Why did you end it that way? And it was like, great, people are having a reaction to it, and that's the point of why we ended it, why we wrote the ending the way we did. So after they whittled it down to 1,000, then they had professional screenwriters come in, or screen readers come in, and out of that 1,000, pick the top 100. And so that was like a month-long process where I didn't get much sleep at all. And yeah, the day came, and sitting in my computer, constantly hitting refresh, and it finally came up, and I scrolled through, and they listed it by username, and the username I used when submitting it was Jackster6. So I'm scrolling, and I must have scrolled too fast because I went right past it. And I was like, son of a, I'm like, we didn't, and then I finally, I started getting text messages, or actually I don't even know if there were text messages back. I started getting phone calls or whatever, and I scrolled up slightly and saw that it was there, and I don't think I've been that excited. Well, probably I was as excited when the White Sox won the World Series in 2005, but I don't think I'd been that excited for such a long time. And it was just validation at that point, like, holy crap, real, this might actually be a possibility at this point. This little idea we had just, not even a few months ago might actually become a movie. And at that point, we got like a huge packet from Live Planet, which was Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, and Chris Moore's production company. And it was, you had to get to sign like a background check. You had to sign all this documentation. You had to get into sign a right of first refusal with Miramax at this point, because Miramax, or was it Miramax at this point? It was Miramax or Dimension. I think Dimension might be owned by Miramax, but whatever. So it was all sort of real at that point. It was like, holy crap, we're getting, I'm signing things in regards to, a screenplay, and it's kind of the goal. And then you had to, shoot a short video and, send it off. And from then on, they then picked the top, I think, it was supposed to be 5, but they ended up picking 6, and we didn't make it. And I remember sitting there, they'd sent out an email a few days prior saying, give us a landline number, so we're going to be calling the top 5. So make sure you give us a landline number, and make sure you're at home or whatever. And I'm sitting there, and every time the phone rang, I was like, oh, here it is, and run and answer the phone. It'd be my aunt, and I'd completely hang up on her and tell her not to call back for a few hours. And yeah, eventually what happened, I got an email from them saying, we picked the top 5. Thank you for blah, blah, blah. And, obviously we weren't called, and our script wasn't on there. It was just such a kick to the gut. It was just like the wind completely went out of you, because you're part of this process it was going on. We submitted it in February, and they picked the top 5 in June. So it's like a 4-month thing where you're involved in this, and I don't think at any point did I really, really think that we were going to win, because it's just, I'm a pessimist at heart, so at no point did I ever think that we were going to win. But to get that close and, beat out, 4,200 other people, but then
cool.
Not beat out, 95 other people. I attribute it to, people who have seen American Idol. And there's usually that show, 1 or 2 shows before they actually go to the live shows. And they put, a group of people into 3 different rooms, and 2 of those rooms advance. And the people in the room that hear everyone else cheering, those are the ones that didn't make it. And it's like, I know what that feels like, and it really sucks. So, it was both good and bad insofar as it validated the screenplay, at least in my eyes it did. The fact that it kind of showed that other people liked it, professionals potentially liked it. The fact that it was basically the first time anyone who wasn't related to me or knew me or gave a damn about anything I thought, said it was good. So while nothing ever really came of that, part of my mind was like, okay, well, now I'm gonna, on every query letter I send to an agent or manager or production company, I was like, this was this was Project Greenlight 3, semi-finalists, and I thought a lot of people would have been like, oh, hand it over, let's read it, and it just didn't happen that way. Contests are good to a point, but at that point in time or whatever, it just didn't seem to resonate or whatever. I mean, it gives me, I think it still gives the script some validation insofar as, if it didn't reach that point, I'd be just some guy losing his vision saying, hey, I want to make a movie, help me out. I think having the green light and then the fact that it was a quarterfinalist in another competition at least gives the potential Kickstarter audience saying look, I'm not just some schlub who decided I'm going to write some script, and it's something I've been working on for a long time. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Now we're into the show, so let's give out the address for it at Kickstarter and remind people that they can help you out, and they can they don't donate when you do Kickstarter. They actually get something in return. But it's Kickstarter. The movie is Four of a Kind,
right.
Crime thriller set in Chicago. So when they go to Kickstarter, well, what do they need to do? Just type in Four of a Kind?
Yeah, I mean, they don't really give you a vanity URL on Kickstarter. Hopefully they do that at some point, but it'd be just quicker to Google Four of a Kind Kickstarter. That'd be the easiest way to find it. Or people could go to fourofakindfilm.com, where basically I do, since day one, I've been writing a daily blog summarizing each day's events, and recapping kind of how the day went. Or if either of those don't work for you, tinyurl.com/fourofakind will redirect you to the actual Kickstarter page. So, but like I said, it's probably easier just Google Four of a Kind Kickstarter, and you'll find your way to the page where you can then watch the video. There's a link to some of the press we've gotten, such as the Huffington Post, Chicago Reader did a little bit about it. Agency Spy. I work in an advertising firm, and Agency Spy is kind of a big deal. And then we just kind of talk about where the money will go, the rewards and things along those lines. Because the way Kickstarter works is you pledge. I will give you $25, and then in return for $25 is a reward level. So, for $25, we'll give you the movie, we'll put your name in the credits, we'll give you a PSD of the poster and the cover image, and you can mess around with that if you want. For $5, we'll just give you the movie as a digital download. We'll drop it into Dropbox, and once it's done, here you go, play it till your heart's content. And then there's higher level rewards, such as, for $500, we'll give you a speaking role in the movie. I think this one's gone already. For $250, it was screenwriters could submit their work, and our producer would read them, give them feedback, and if he liked it enough, would pass it along to the people he works with. So, but I think that one's gone already. That's the
well, that's very
website.
cool. And it go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's an all-or-nothing proposition, too. You've got 30 days, in this case, your campaign, you've got, I'm looking at it now, you've got 17 days to go. You're trying to reach $100,000, and you either get $100,000 in 17 days or you get nothing.
Correct.
So if people are listening, and you're listening live or archive, visit. If you can help and you can support, go and decide what you can do, and know that you're getting something in return.
Right.
And let's see if we can help Jack make his $100,000 goal in the time that's remaining.
Yeah. And if anyone has a rich uncle that has thought about producing film at some point in their lives, that'd be awesome. Be nice.
So what have you learned about, I wanted to talk about the movie too, but what have you learned about Kickstarter, the ins and outs of Kickstarter, since you've been doing this campaign, that you would share with other filmmakers regarding a campaign like that?
So far, I think maybe, even though I'm a pessimist at heart, there is some optimism there. And I remember looking at some other people's Kickstarters that have raised north of $100,000, because that was my goal. So I'm like, well, let me look at what these guys were doing, and a lot of them had several people give them over $1,000 or over $2,500, and I think in the back of my mind I actually thought that random people on the internet will give you $2,500, and that might be entirely possible. I haven't actually reached out to them and confirmed that these were completely random people. It might be true that maybe our reward level at higher level isn't enticing enough. But I think for the most part, people that you either know or who are going to give you money anyways are the ones that are going to give you that high of level of a donation or pledge, because Kickstarter isn't. You're investing in someone's creativity, but they don't offer equity. Like I can't give someone, if someone wanted to give me $50,000, I can't say, well, you get a percentage of DVD sales, because they just don't allow that. Crowd investing was actually not even technically, it was illegal, I think, when Kickstarter started. I believe now they've actually passed a bill that crowd investing is legal. However, Kickstarter hasn't given any indication that they're looking to go that route, probably because there's a lot more legality and SEC stuff that would probably be involved in it. Other things I think I've learned, I didn't realize how many, how to put this, I'm still just, amazed, even though, if you read over my blog or whatever, it's kind of, on the slow days and things like that, it might come off as pessimistic, and, we're not meeting our daily goal of X, Y, or, whatever to raise the full amount. But I'm still amazed when, people I don't even know give you like $100 or give you $200, or even just random people will give you $5 or whatever. It's just, it's a totally cool way to kind of finance your product, because not only are you getting people involved financially, but you're getting them involved. You're kind of building an audience for your project. So hopefully at the time when, if we raise the money, we shoot it, there's already, let's say 1,000 or 2,000 people that already are aware of it, that might be interested in either going to a screening or purchasing it, things along those lines. And then one of the things, maybe I don't think I learned this from Kickstarter, but maybe learned it from looking at other people's projects. One of the things that I've noticed, some people will give at a reward level for $5, we'll thank you. For $5, we'll thank you on our website and Twitter. And to me, that's just kind of crazy, because if someone's giving you money, you should do whatever you can to thank them anyways. It shouldn't be a reward level. So I try, people who give me $1 and the person who gave me $500, I go out of my way to send them an email through Kickstarter. If I can't find them because some people aren't on Twitter. If I can't find them on Twitter or things along those lines, just to thank people. And then one of the things we do for everyone who backs the project is we create these custom, personalized eye charts for them. So it's their name in an eye chart. And if we're friends with them on Facebook, we tag them, so that way it'll show up in their feed, and it gives a link back to the campaign. I don't know if any of this actually contributes to us getting more backers, but it at least gives more eyes to the project. So it's one way to engage your backers, because I don't think there's anything worse than going to back a project. Because one of the things with Kickstarter is you have access to these creators, to the directors, the writers, and you can just send them an email, or usually they list their contact information, such as their Twitter feed and things along those lines. So you're much closer to the people producing the project. And I totally lost my train of thought on that one. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Well, I think it's fair to say that and what you point out is people can give $1, they give $5, they could give, up more certainly, but every dollar matters. Every person that takes the time and effort to support a filmmaker, to support your film, is worth, thanking, and worth letting them know how much it's appreciated. And if they can't give $1, at least what they can do is they can tell other people about it. They can spread it, they can link it, they can Facebook it, they can tweet it, they can help you get the word out, in other ways as well. So people can always be active and doing it. Again, the website is forofakindfilm.com.
Correct.
And what did you say? Google Kickstarter, Four of a Kind?
Yeah, I mean, if you just Google Four of a Kind Kickstarter, you'll be able to find it. Or, I mean, if you go to facebook.com/4ofakindfilm, basically just Google Four of a Kind Film or Four of a Kind Kickstarter, and that will bring you to the Kickstarter page, which, like I said, has our video. Going back to what I lost my train of thought on, what I was trying to say was there's nothing worse than when you back a project and then you get nothing back from, like, no emails, no updates, nothing. You back the project and it kind of just sits there, and it's not a shock when their project doesn't get funded, when they're not actively trying to get their backers involved and trying to, because it's, I've had a few people say, look, I can give you like $5. And I usually tell them, I'm like, your tweet, or I'm like, I'll take your $5, obviously, but your tweet or liking it on Facebook or sharing it on Facebook is worth, tenfold of that, because you never know who's in your social network that knows a guy who blah, blah, blah. So like a friend of mine who said that, she's like, I can give you $5. I'm like, that's great, I'll take it. And then she thought of, well, I know a guy who, might be able to invest a significant amount of money, and then he knows a guy who might be interested. So, if I never posted on, obviously I would have, but if I never, if I would have told her, like, keep your $5, I don't want it, blah, blah. If you're going to be a jerk about it, obviously they're not going to go the extra mile to try and help you. So maybe it just kind of even goes back to even the golden rule, just be nice to people and, be appreciative, because it can definitely go a long way.
Well, that's very cool. Very, very nice insights into some of the things that we can do when we have Kickstarter campaigns. I appreciate you sharing this. I'm going to take a break right now. It's going to be a short break, but everybody stay tuned. You're listening to Rex Sikes Movie Beat. The official URL is rexsikes.com, and you can find all of these interviews like this one archived at the interviews blog at rexsikes.com. They're also available as podcasts on iTunes, and of course they're available from Blog Talk. Now, one of the things we ask you to do, because all of these are done absolutely free, no charge, you get this information, is that we ask you to spread it, to share it near and far with all your friends and your entertainment business contacts and your industry associates and that kind of thing. Just share them. Email it, phone it, text it, Facebook it, to them, and invite them to check it out and listen. The other thing that we ask you to do is always rate and review the shows and the podcast. So if you're listening today and you're in the chat room, if you're live or otherwise, you can go right underneath the player. There's a window, and sometimes it's not visible depending on the browser you have while the player is playing. But after the show, close your player down, and the window will appear. Or leave a comment now if the window is visible, and just leave comments about the show. And when you go to iTunes and you subscribe to the podcast, I hope you do, because you download all these wonderful shows to your favorite electronic device. Take them with you wherever you go. Listen while you drive or walk or exercise. It's truly an education that you're going to be glad that you got. Rate them. And the reason I ask you to do this is it extends our reach to other people who may not know about this. It increases our presence on the Internet and makes us more visible to those who might otherwise not know about us, to find us and to stumble on us. And when you share, actively share, and tell people, hey, you got to hear this show, or you got to check out this guest, or you got to go to Rex Sikes Movie Beat, or you share the website, it helps my guests, and it helps me 100-fold. I certainly appreciate that. So thank you so much. and stay tuned, because there's all sorts of great shows coming up in the near future. And I won't go into those now. We're going to return with Jack Marchetti, discussing the movie Four of a Kind, a crime thriller set in Chicago, and his Kickstarter campaign. Again, you can go to Kickstarter, Four of a Kind Kickstarter on Google, or you can go to fourofakindthefilm.com and find his Kickstarter campaign. I'm looking at it, and if you want the direct link, I can tell you what it is. Looking at it, it's kickstarter.com/4-of-crime-thriller-set-in-Chicago. I mean, it's a long one there. It's posted in the chat room, so you can take a look at it. But or you can go to Kickstarter and just search for projects and find Four of a Kind. Jack.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Chicago, and this is a crime thriller set in Chicago. Can you tell us a bit about the story and your screenplay?
Sure. Someone in an interview I did, they asked, growing up in Chicago, or like, what kind of helped you come up with, like, going into the seedy crime world of, that these characters live in, or whatever. And I, thought back, and I'm like, well, I don't really know anyone in the mob, obviously. I grew up in a relatively tough neighborhood called Pilsen, which is on the southwest side of the city. And I don't know if that necessarily contribute. I think I blame more, Scorsese movies and Tarantino movies for shaping the way I would write a crime thriller than potentially growing up in a relatively tough neighborhood. But I'm sure it, being around, like, a lot of my friends growing up, were gangbangers, not mobsters by any means, but so being around, somewhat of a, I wouldn't say like very violent, but I got into a lot of fights as a kid. Me and my brother got into a lot of fights as a kid, and I remember being kind of surprised when I got to high school, which was nowhere near where I grew up. And, well, it was, like 50 blocks away, so it was far in my mind. But, and meeting people that, like, never been in a fight before, when, me and my brother were probably, either if we weren't fighting each other, we were fighting someone else, right, on, a regular basis. So it was kind of interesting to meet people that didn't necessarily have, somewhat of a I wouldn't even call it a violent upbringing, but, like, who hasn't been punched in the face before? It's kind of like Fight Club. Like, how much can you know about yourself if you haven't been in a fight before? But, so, the genesis of the story came, I was writing another script at the time, and a buddy of mine who's also big into film said, what if we wrote like a mob movie where he has, like, these 4 friends, and one of them's ordered to kill the other 3. And at the time, I was like, that sounds kind of interesting. And I went home and, put down the script I was trying, because I think a lot of writers early on suffer from this, where you get to, because it's really fun to set up a movie. Like, writing the first 30 pages to me is just joyful. It is so much fun to set up the world. But then you have to, you got to then write the next, like, Act 2 is where the movie takes place. That's where everything kind of happens. And that's usually where, like, if you don't really have a good story, that's usually where it's all going to fall apart. So, I went home, and the previous script I was working on was probably at around page 50, and I had run out of, like, steam on where to go with it, and put that aside and just loaded up a new file, new draft on I use Movie Magic Screenwriter, and just started hammering away and wrote the opening scene, which basically is the same today as it was, back in late 2003 when I started writing this. And so in, like, about 2 weeks, I ended up writing the entire script, and this was the first time writing anything where I never really got to a point where I didn't know what happened next, because we'd come up with, this is the entire story, this is what's going to happen, and I'm sure other writers come across this too, where as you're writing it, it's almost like you're just discovering it, as opposed to you're actively thinking about what's going to happen next. It's almost like you're just jotting down, it's almost like you're an observer watching the characters go through the story. So the story has evolved a bit since then, and the guy I had worked on it with decided he just didn't. He was never really he kind of helped me come up with the idea of it. He was never really like a true co-writer, but he just has no interest in really trying to make it. Or I'd imagine if we get funded, I'm assuming he'd probably want to be not necessarily maybe come onto the set and see it come to life or whatever, but he hasn't really taken an interest in it in a really long time. But the story now is it still centers around these friends that grew up in the Chicago crime syndicate, and one of them is now working undercover to take down this crew that he grew up with and the boss that he had worked with. And things really go awry when his sister is found murdered, and he's not sure, was this a hit called on her? Was it just a random thing, like a random act of violence? Chicago's become kind of a violent city these days. And so things just kind of take off from there in the story. And one of the things I've introduced since, obviously this wasn't around back when I wrote the original draft, was introducing potential ways that criminals and even cops use social media and things along those lines to either track people or get information on people they normally wouldn't have. It's just kind of amazing what you can find out about people just by Googling them or finding their Twitter feed, and then finding their Facebook page and things along those lines. So introducing those type of concepts into a crime thriller, I think, might make it pretty interesting. And so that's the story basically. And one of the things that I did early on, which probably aided to being able to write these characters probably as well as I think I have, is I wrote 40 pages of backstory about these guys. The first 40 pages of the script almost the first 40 pages of the script was them as kids and them, becoming, rising up into this, small local crime syndicate. And looking back on it, that helped frame who these people were. But at the end of the day, it's just not needed in the film because it's not really about their rise into the crime world. It's more along the lines of their fall. So as long as you just set up early on that, who they are and where they're from and technically how they got there, you could do that in one or two pages as opposed to 40, which is, another reason why I'm kind of glad this thing has taken me so long to potentially produce is it's allowed me the time to get better at the craft of just screenwriting and storytelling. So hopefully once, we yell action and start actually filming this thing, it's the best possible screenplay I could have written.
Well, that's very cool. That truly is very cool. Now, you have another screenplay that was optioned that you wrote with another person. So, are you continuing to write? I want to learn more about that one. But are you continuing to write, or has this campaign and the efforts to get Four of a Kind made kind of taken precedence?
Well, I've written. Let's see. I'm currently writing. Me and my brother, who obviously suffers from the disease as well, he and I wrote our horror script back in earlier this year. He's what's funny is my brother's always been I'm for what I do for a living. I'm a software developer. Hopefully become a filmmaker when this is all said and done. But for the job that pays me right now, I write code. I'm a software developer. So I was always the left-brained one, math, science. He was always the right-brained one. He got his degree in English and was the guy's a hell of a writer. Like, he could write circles around me. He just never, I think, got, I don't want to say the ambition, but just never finally sat down and started writing things. So he actually started writing something in the vein of like a Game of Thrones, like a fantasy type novel. He started writing that, and I think I'm not sure what the page count was, but he got pretty far with it. And I think we were watching football, the playoffs, like back in last winter, and he had an idea for a horror film. And so he and I, over like a couple of weeks, more like a couple of months, sat down and wrote like our first screenplay together. Now we haven't really done much with it as far as trying to get it out there or anything, and there's obviously several. I mean, it's early on, so there's still several things we want to change with it or whatever. But I think it's a different genre. So I've written a Christmas movie. I've written now a crime thriller. I've written the atypical, I think they call it grumblecore or something like that. 20-something sitting around talking, and I think a lot of people end up making that movie for some reason. So I try and, while I'm most comfortable writing about seedy characters and using foul language and things along those lines, like writing a Christmas movie, proved to be pretty hard. It wasn't as hard as I thought it could be. But as far as writing goes now, everything's kind of been put on hold while we run through the Kickstarter campaign, and then if that succeeds, and then we have to move into pre-production, I'll be probably spending the majority of my time because the script is I like where it's at right now, but there's still some things I'd like to tweak a little bit on it and add to it, because it's very dialogue heavy. So the typical 1 page equals 1 minute rule probably doesn't apply to a lot of it, because once I realized I wanted to shoot it, I knew there were certain things I was just not going to be able to do due to budgetary reasons. So a few bigger action sequences were trimmed down, and I added a decent amount of more talky scenes, which are much less screen time than an action sequence. So I mean, depending on how much we raise, some of those action sequences we're not blowing up buildings or anything, but some of those things would be put back in, and I'd like to expand upon some other areas, so we don't end up filming it and realize I have a 70-minute movie that's all dialogue, because it was just such a talky movie. So yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because we've kind of touched on it, but going back to the awards or the rewards or the what you do in exchange, you're giving business owners and product owners a chance to be featured in your film as well. How does this work?
Right. So if you want, like, obviously they call it product placement. So if you have like a business or a product or something along those lines that you would like us to show in the film, like I've reached out to a few local Chicago businesses that I'm still waiting to hear back to on whether or not we'll show your company on screen, or we'll have like a character mention something about your business, or something along those lines. Something obviously we have to try and fit it into the context of the story, obviously, because you don't want to be completely jarring, almost like Wayne's World, where they just start picking up, Pizza Hut and smiling at the screen. So that's one thing to try and attract, is realizing, like, the amount of people that would need to give you $5 to $10 to raise $100,000. I just don't have that big of an audience. So to attract potential business people to then, so I think it's $1,500 to then have your something related to your business in the film. And we've had one person who owns like a mortgage company so far. I've had a guy who did T-shirts who was interested in having his T-shirts in the movie, so I'm still waiting to hear back from him. There's a couple food trucks in Chicago that I've reached out to, a few local businesses that I've reached out to, and there's a guy who owns a trucking firm who I believe will go that route. I'm thinking he might actually be a bigger investor than just the 1,500 level. So hopefully he is. But yeah, so that was one thing we kind of realized early on was trying to get people at a higher level. Because like I said, I can't give you equity in the movie, so maybe I could at least let you advertise in my movie, and so hopefully it works out.
Well, that's very cool. I mean, you're thinking about what value you add back to the people who, can assist you in getting the movie made, whether they do it through Kickstarter or through product placement or other means. So that's cool. I think that's always the first step that people need to take when they enter a campaign or when they ask anybody for anything is what can I give them first that they're likely to respond to. How can I add value to them?
Right,
you need 20,000 people. Go ahead.
I was going to say, because like one of the ideas not the idea, but what made me think of that was anyone who's seen the movie Swingers knows that one of the bars or that they go to is called the Dresden Room, and while that movie didn't set any records at the box office, it became such a cult hit that almost everyone that went to LA during that time wanted to go to the Dresden Room. So that's kind of how I pitched the idea to potential restaurants and things like that. Like, look, if this thing turns out to be, God willing or whatever, like Reservoir Dogs of the 21st century or whatever, and we show your restaurant, you're going to have a bunch of film geeks who want to go there. So, for just for $1,500, I would have put my T-shirt or my company in Reservoir Dogs. I mean, obviously that wouldn't have happened because Quentin Tarantino is completely against product placement, hence names, like cigarettes, red apples as opposed to Marlboros. But I mean, you never know. If he was growing up in the age of Kickstarter, you never know. It might have been at that point. Who knows what you would have done to try and get the movie made. So.
Oh, absolutely. What I was going to say is it takes 20,000 people to give $5 each to make $100,000.
Right.
So obviously it takes 200 at another level of investment, and it takes 20 at another. I mean, but the point is that, and this is where listeners, and this is where tweeters, and this is where Facebook comes in. If every person that was in your network would at least share it. Let's say you had 100 people, that's 100 shares, and if they shared it with 100 people, and they, you would grow fairly exponentially. If every person in your network could give $1 and then turn on somebody else to it, ultimately, it may, because I don't know the size of your network, it may not be enough. But
right.
But what we need to do, what I really think the film community needs to do, is realize how many of us there are. And how many, there's a lot of campaigns, and people have to decide which campaign they're going to give to, or they give to many campaigns, which is also, but the very least we can do is we can spread the word. We can share, we can tweet. I love the people who live tweet during my show because they're supporting the guests and they're supporting me. And by the way, I want to make one comment about today's tweets. I tweeted stuff, and I use TweetDeck, and every now and then, somehow I tweet, and somebody retweets it or whatever, and the links get hosed. They get broken up, and they don't work. And so I always try and go back through, even during the show, and find out if the links are working or not. And some of the links don't work. So again, if you want to hear this interview with Jack again, or if you want to share it with somebody, don't always rely on check the link. Always check the links and make sure they work before you retweet, or check the links and make sure they work before you share it, because they do get shared links get broken. Broken links get shared. So I want to make sure that people pay attention to that. But also, if you want to hear this interview again or you want to share it, it's go to rexsikes.com, go to the interviews blog, and then you just look for Jack. You just scroll through the archives. Right now, Jack is currently right in the first or second position there. But ultimately, you scroll down and you find the people you want to listen to, and you read their bio, and inside those biographies are the links to listen to the show. And so that'll be there, forever. But going back, I mean, because we were talking about, you know, people giving $1, or people giving small amounts, or people doing product placement, you know, the crux of everything is getting the word out, getting people to get up off their butts and actually take action and actually do something. And in this world, you know, where we're bombarded by all sorts of things, it seems that people are less apt to act. And so and what I loved about what you said before is if somebody does act and they give you a buck or they share it, that you want to make sure that you thank them for their efforts and that you go that extra way, you know, that extra mile to do that. Because some people don't. You know, frankly, some people just don't do that. But it's good that you do. Well, let me ask you this. Now, a couple more questions, and that was you have this option screenplay with this other writer, The Christmas Story, and the producer. Is the producer? Is he going to produce once the money's raised, or is he helping you produce now? I mean, is this a person who's, you know, attached themselves to a project? Are they, you know, where, you know, in terms of, are you trying to man this all by yourself, run the campaign and do everything, or do you have some support?
As far as like running the Kickstarter, like, do I have any support with the Kickstarter?
Kickstarter with producing right now. With, you know, I mean, are there?
Yeah, right now I have a guy named Lucas who has kind of become, you might say, a legend in his own mind.
Lucas Minnelli, he's listening to you right now, man.
Yeah, he, what do you call it? He is kind of become the, I guess, go-to consultant when it comes to Kickstarter campaigns. I first came across him when I just was Googling around for, this was back in March or April, just trying to find research on, you know, things to avoid, things to do. And he had written some very data-centric posts, which, you know, is right up my left brain alley. You know, totally, you start showing me charts and data or whatever, you get my attention. And he had just written a bunch of posts about, you know, these are the reward levels that seem to succeed. This is where this particular perk does best. These are the types of film projects that get funded or their success rate. And like one of the things that jumped out at me was I'd always just assumed documentaries would do better. By far, I just assumed people would be totally for a documentary because there's a cause behind it. So people would feel more apt to give to a cause. And it just wasn't true. They succeed just about at the same rate that a narrative film succeeds at, you know, raising the full amount as opposed to raising the finishing funds for like post-production, things along those lines. So I started reading some of his articles, and at some point realized the complete lack of audience that I had. I think I had 300 Twitter followers at the time, and I mean I had a decent. I knew there were a group of friends and family that would come out on day one and support me as heavily as possible, but I knew that would get me about $3,000, and that's just about exactly what it did on day one. We raised like $3,800, something like that, and that was about almost all family and most friends that I could count on. And obviously, $3,800 is less than $100,000, so I was going to need someone's help in getting awareness out there. And considering I have a full-time job as it is, and then running the Kickstarter is just about another full-time job, as I probably spend 5 to 8 hours a day either writing emails, writing blog posts. I was amazed at how much writing I would do on this campaign. I've written a ton of blog posts, and at some point it's like you're writing the same thing over and over again and trying just to come up with different approaches to making it, you know, not stale. So there was just going to be no way I would be able to you know, try and find get the audience out there if I didn't have help. So Lucas is on board helping. I enlisted the help of a publicist and Lynette Carrington to write like a press release and try and approach you know, news outlets, blog sites, things along those lines. Just because I don't really know if there's a certain way of approaching these people, and you know, I can write you a screenplay, but I'm probably not going to be able to write you a press release. So So early on, I realized I was going to need the help of other people to come on board and to get this thing, hopefully towards success. So there's definitely people helping out.
So I said you've got two very cool people helping you out. You got Lucas and you got Lynette, and both very, very good people. I'm happy that you have them as support people. They both are. I know them both, and they work hard and they're dedicated and they're fabulous. So
Absolutely.
That is awesome. I had asked you about and we've got about 7 minutes left right now. So
okay.
I had asked you about the producer that I mentioned in the biography. Is he actually on board and helping you produce right now, or is he coming on board once the money is raised?
He'd come on probably once the money is raised. That's when he would come on to probably be on set and make sure that I'm not spending 20 takes on something that only needed one,
sure.
And getting things moving along. And he would probably come on board for that. And then there's I work at an ad agency that has that we do produce commercials and things along those lines. So there are producers there. They haven't done any feature work obviously, but those are probably people too that I'd probably either maybe not necessarily hire, but definitely go to for help and things along those lines. So considering I'd be probably one of the most least experienced persons on set at any given time. I mean, I've written a lot, but as far as being on set or so, it's ideal to surround yourself with and I think this is just a good idea in general. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. So hopefully it all works out.
That is one of my favorite sayings and one of my favorite practices. If you're surrounded by people who are smarter than you, they'll make you look good.
Exactly.
Especially if they've got your back. So that's very cool. Very, very cool. So again, the movie is Four of a Kind. It's a thriller crime drama set in Chicago. It's by Jack Marchetti, and he's got a Kickstarter campaign that we hope you will take a look at. Go to Kickstarter, look up Four of a Kind. Go to Google and go Four of a Kind Kickstarter, or go to fourofakindfilm.com and be sure that you check it out. Again, I make mention of the fact that indie filmmakers need to support each other. Twitter friends need to support each other. I'm always amazed because I get lots of people direct messaging me in my inbox on Twitter, and I respond to some of them, some I don't. Some are it's what you call spam or whatever. I get lots of stuff going through, and it doesn't ever bother me because what the feed goes through. If I see one person 100 times, because I know some people, have automated tweet things and they go out every minute or something like that, it doesn't bother me because it's simply going through the tweet. I don't get bent out of shape, and I don't delete them because of that. I don't report them because of that. If there's some egregious violation, I suppose I would. But the bottom line is people are trying to reach out. And if they're filmmakers, I want to know as much as possible about what they're up to. And if I can support them, I'll retweet their campaigns. I'll retweet some of their messages. I hope they'll retweet mine, those kinds of things, because I've got a lot of great guests on my show like yourself, who I want the world to know about. And so I spend time actively promoting my guests. And it's getting people who are busy and who are, looking at those Twitter feeds to actually do something, and that is to either retweet about your movie, go to the Kickstarter campaign and find out what they can give and give something to your movie. There may be people who listen who are in the Chicago area or something who go, I'm a producer, I know a producer, I know somebody who could help, and help take up, since you work full time, who would be good people, those kinds of things, and so that we connect up, that this community that we talk about having as an indie filmmaker community isn't just a community in name only, it's actually a community in action, in that we actively support and uplift each other, and in that way, I think we can make a significant dent in what it is. I've always been a Hollywood studio guy. I mean, not career-wise. I haven't worked in the studio, but I like the Hollywood system. I like the movie. I like the old way that they did things. And independent film in the 70s was very different than independent film in the 2000 decade. But now that we claim we've got this vast worldwide global network of filmmakers, then let's all band together and really help each other out and really support each other and nurture each other and promote each other because I think, that's the way things are going to happen when we really do realize we're brothers and sisters and we're all in the trench together. If I can help you get your movie out, maybe you'll help me get my movie out, and there'll be some kind of reciprocal kind of thing. One hand washes the other. You scratch my back, I scratch your. But it's and I use all those phrases, but it is truly true.
Right.
It's
all about paying it forward.
Yeah, and that's really what it's all about, and that is what I would hope that the film, again, community becomes, is one that does pay it forward and that looks out for each other.
Totally.
So you are a busy guy, and I wish you the very best, and good luck with your health and your eyesight, and I hope it lasts forever. And I hope you also, I know you do, and I'm sure you do, and I hope you get your movie made sooner rather than later, and that the Kickstarter campaign is successful, and that you find that way to make your dream, absolutely come true.
I appreciate it, and I'm hopeful too. So sometimes it's the only thing you have to hold on to. So.
Well, that's very cool. It's very cool, and I'm glad to have you on the show, and we will be in touch, and we'll continue to support and let people know about the campaign, as I hope my listeners will, and then report back and let us know how things are going.
Definitely will do, and definitely thanks for having me on and letting me ramble on for the last hour and change.
Well, that's good. All right. Well, more power to you, Jack, and I will be talking with you soon. I'm going to call you back in just a little bit, and we'll chat. But it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. It's fourofakindfilm.com. Go check it out right now. Google Four of a Kind Kickstarter, or go to Kickstarter and search Four of a Kind. It's Jack Marchetti, and please help us out. Please help him out. All right. Thank you, Jack. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye-bye. Again, Mr. Jack Marchetti, wow, what a circumstance to be trying to raise your money and trying to get your film off the ground. And so if you can, help him do it. And if you can't give anything, then just keep spreading the word and bringing it to the attention of others, because that helps in ways that you can't even begin to imagine when we share and share and share. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening, and thanks for being here. Again, I got lots of fabulous guests coming up. My next guest is Jamie Nieto. He is the Olympic high jump champion, the oldest man competing in the high jump is 35. He competes today or tomorrow at the Olympics in London. We had him on last week for part 1, and he's back on Thursday, the 9th, at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific, to talk about the Olympics. Hopefully he will have brought home a medal at that time. He's an actor and producer, and he's got a series, web series that he's producing. He's also starring in the Roger Clemente story, and you're going to want to listen to part 2 with Jamie Nieto, and because you'll be glad that you did. You really will be glad that you did. It's awesome when you think about the dedication it takes to be an Olympic athlete, and that he brings that same kind of dedication to being an actor and a filmmaker. I am notoriously lazy in all of my years by comparison, by any means, to what these people do in terms of training and learning. So having said that, please be sure to tune in, and please do keep sharing this website and these interviews with all your friends and your industry contacts, and please do help us spread the word by leaving comments after the show or during the show or tweeting live or putting it on your Facebook wall. When you share it to your Facebook wall, other people see it. If you share it to my Facebook wall, the same people see it that I share it to. So it's getting it out there. I don't understand Facebook anymore. Now you do something, you might have 5,000 friends, and it'll say 280 people saw this, and I'm like, well, why only 280? Or when I look at my chat window on Facebook, how come I only see the same, 100 people every day, and I've got over 5,000 friends? Why don't I see all 5,000 of them? I don't know what's happened to Facebook and why it's having such trouble reaching, all of the people on there, but together we can make a difference, and together by each of us taking steps to do that, we can connect up around the world. We literally can do that. but it's up to each and every one of us. So I appreciate that. Everybody, you can follow me on Twitter. It's Rex Sikes Movie BT on Twitter. It's Rex Sikes Movie BT on Twitter. I have a YouTube channel, Rex Sikes Movie Beat on YouTube, and the Rex Sikes Movie Beat Friends page on Facebook, and you can go there. I can't add any more friends in my personal profile, but you can follow me on or friend me on Facebook under Rex Sikes Movie Beat. We can be in touch that way. And then there's Serum the Movie. It's a short film that we didn't get to change the title before. Once you've got 200 followers or friends or whatever, you can't change your title, so it's a Serum short film. But Serum the Movie at Facebook as well. We are continuing to shoot on that. I'll let you know how that goes as we go along. Go get Girls Gone Dead if you like comedy horror flicks from the 80s. And everybody, meanwhile, make your own pictures, get your projects done, help somebody else out, and let somebody else help you out. But have a fabulous day, everybody. Make your movies, complete your projects, and until we meet the next time, that's a wrap.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.
High doses of vitamin A can lead to liver failure. So it's a kind of pick your poison kind of deal. And my eye doctor, who I see on an annual basis, has basically said to not even bother going that route because it's just the possibility of destroying your liver is probably worse than potentially losing your eyesight or whatever. I don't know necessarily how I feel about that one, but so I was diagnosed when I was 6 years old. I didn't really realize it was a bigger deal. At first I thought I couldn't see the chalkboard, and I needed glasses to help see in class. I didn't really realize that it was a potentially, really debilitating condition until I was 13 when I wanted to get contact lenses. And I went to some Pearl Vision or something like that, and the doctor wanted me to read the 20/20 line, and I'm not correctable to 20/20. With my glasses on, I can read probably the 20/50/60 line. With contacts in, however, I can read 20/30. I'm much more visually acute with contact lenses in. But so the first time I went to go get contacts, he was trying to get me to read the 20/20 line, and I couldn't read it. And the doctor got really, really pissed at me and said I was being immature, and called my mother in and said, your son isn't mature enough for this, blah, blah, blah. And my mom said, well, he has cone rod dystrophy. He can't read the 20/20 line. And the look on the doctor's face kind of just said it all. He was like, oh, that's why. My bad. I feel really bad for you now. Let me apologize. And this was in 1993, so I couldn't Google what cone rod dystrophy was. And, I was basically just told it's a disease that's basically going to basically start off with very bad night vision. So I'm going to have night blindness. And then I'm going to have, at the later stages of the disease, you get extreme tunnel vision as your peripheral vision completely goes away. And then it basically comes down to the point where it's almost like you're looking through a very tiny straw. And then in very extreme versions of the disease, you lose your macula goes. So you have no central vision either. So all intents and purposes, you're basically blind. And
Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
Welcome to Rex Sikes Movie Beat, conversations with filmmakers where we discuss everything film and television. Here on Movie Beat, you'll learn what to do and what not to do when it comes to making movies and TV, and we will talk to everyone behind the scenes and in front of the camera, and they'll provide you with guests and the information you're going to want to have, whether you're a filmmaker or a fan. And so now let's move behind the scenes here at Movie Beat. My guest today is Jack Marchetti. He is a filmmaker, screenwriter in Chicago. We're going to be talking with him in just a moment and about his Kickstarter campaign and about his project and about things going on in his life. So stay tuned. Right now the chat room is open. If you're listening live, you can join us in the chat room. Obviously, if you're listening to this as a recorded show, an archive show, that option is not available to you. I encourage live tweeting during the shows, whether they're recorded shows or whether they're you're actually listening while we're recording it. The official web address for Rex Sikes Movie Beat is rexsikes.com. That's my name. It's Rex Sikes. I'm your host, so rexsikes.com. All of these interviews, over 300 hours of professional filmmakers sharing their expertise with you, their nuts and bolts, what to do, what not to do, how to get things done easier, faster, smoother, with less hassle, is all available at the interviews blog at rexsikes.com. So go and listen to these shows. Go and listen to the archive shows. There is a wealth of valuable information there for you. If you're a filmmaker, screenwriter, an actor, whatever you are in the entertainment business, you're going to want to go and check that out. So please do continue to listen and continue to share and spread these. Invite other people to listen right now while you're listening, and do so however you can, phone, email, Twitter, and have them join us. I've got just a couple of things I'm going to say, and then I'm going to tell you about Jack. As you may have known, one of the movies that I co-produced and line-produced, Girls Gone Dead, opened on the 17th of July, 2012, and very rapidly became the #1 horror film on DVD and video on demand. Flying off the shelves, became an Amazon top seller. It was high up on the list of all of the video on demand places. Brick and mortar stores couldn't keep it on their shelves. It became 51 of all movies ever made on IMDb for a week or two, and
that's kind of where my brother is right now. His vision was always much better than mine, and then just a few years ago, it just went on him really fast. And
well,
he uses a cane now. He was starting to learn Braille. He was going to a school for the blind to learn mobility, how to navigate the world better with such such visual loss. And it was it's pretty scary because you can't tell you're getting taller, right? So it's often I can't really tell if my vision is getting worse or not. I've always known since I was a teenager that my night vision was really bad. So going to bars or dark restaurants is really bad because I just can't. I might as well have my eyes closed if I'm in a dark, most nice restaurants are very dark. I can barely see the table. So those are the only instances where I really feel handicapped. So I try and avoid those as much as humanly possible. Just kind of seeing where what happened with my brother, and it's kind of looking into the future and seeing he's only 3 years older than I am, and I asked my eye doctor the last couple times I saw him was is that going to be me? Am I 3 years away from needing the cane, not being able to really be as independent as I am now? And he just said he didn't know. They don't know why his went so quickly. They don't know why mine might be stale. It's entirely possible this is as bad as it gets. And if this is as bad as it gets, I'll take it because I'm still I can still see relatively well. My night vision is still really bad, but, I still get around. I still, can work. I still drive typically during the day. I try and avoid night driving as much as possible. But all those things my brother can't do anymore. He doesn't drive. He's on disability. And so it was the proverbial, kind of seeing where he is right now and possibly being there and not knowing when, could it happen a year from now, could it happen months from now, that whole not knowing was kind of the proverbial kick in the ass to try and get this movie made while
welcoming Jack to the show. Jack, hi, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm glad we got you here. All right, and the chat room again is open. If you're listening to this live, or if you're in the chat room again, please do invite other people to listen, and please contact or tweet and share it and get people to tune in. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm okay. I get one of these summer colds, so if I sound a little scratchy, that's the reason. Well, let me ask you first about the eyes and about this disorder. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's called cone rod dystrophy, and it's a degenerative retinal disease, similar in the vein to what's somewhat more known, but probably still it's not really as common. It's called retinitis pigmentosa, which is kind of like the group name for degenerative retinal diseases. People like Steve Wynn of Wynn Casino, he has it. Kevin
Can I interrupt you for a second? Can
yeah.
I interrupt you?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're getting like some staticky kind of, or echoey kind of stuff going on.
Okay. Do you want me to call back in?
No, that's better. That's better. Whatever. I don't know if there's a change or whatever, but suddenly it's a little better. You were mentioning.
Right. So it's called cone rod dystrophy, and basically what that means is in the back of your eye and your retina there are photoreceptors called cones and rods, and those basically are light receptors. So in my disease, they basically cease to function correctly. I'm not entirely sure if they completely die off or if they just stop working. And it's a genetic condition. There's no treatment for it. There's no cure. There's basically nothing you can do with it. At this point, it's kind of like a waiting game. Now, there's certain things you can do just to stay healthy, such as quit smoking, try and exercise more, things along those lines. And some have suggested going on like a vitamin A regimen, things along those lines. Some studies have shown that can delay the disease for up to 10 years. However,
yeah, and now but it's still within the top 500 of all of the movies searched for by the millions and millions and millions of people on IMDb. So we're very proud, very, very pleased of the success that movie is having. I'm continuing to film on the movie Serum, and you can join us at the Facebook page, Serum the Movie, on Facebook. Without any further hesitation, let me introduce to you my guest today. Jack Marchetti is a screenwriter, director, and he's losing his vision. And he has a dream to direct his feature film before this happens. Jack is crowdfunding right now to make his dream come true. Four of a Kind is a gritty crime drama that takes place in Chicago. Now, growing up in Chicago in a rough neighborhood gave screenwriter Moretti some strong insights into how to best portray and reveal his characters. And now, weeks into his Kickstarter campaign, Jack has received some nice shout-outs from actors Matthew Lillard and Holt Boggs and writer Neil Gaiman. The filmmaking community has rallied behind this particular campaign because it is a solid script and has an inspiring backstory. Actress, producer Liz Friedman, the LA Inc., introduced him to Dan DeStefano, who will produce Four of a Kind when the Kickstarter campaign is successful. DeStefano worked at Paramount as an assistant to the VP of Productions, also with the Weinstein Company as well. I believe there's a VP of television. Jack, or as an assistant to the VP of television, Jack and Liz Friedman worked together on the screenplay All I Want for Christmas, which was optioned by Lighthouse Pictures in 2011. Four of a Kind, the current screenplay that Jack is wanting to produce and direct and get made, was a top 100 finalist in Project Greenlight in Season 3, beating out over 4,000 other screenplays. The screenplay failed to advance further, but the issue of losing his eyesight pressures Jack to get it produced. He was diagnosed with cone rod dystrophy, a genetic eye disease that causes blindness at an early age. Unpredictable, it can move slowly or take someone's vision very rapidly. Jack's older brother has already lost his vision to the very same disease. And knowing that the disease is progressing and unpredictable, Jack decided to take matters into his own hand. He's attempting to run a Kickstarter campaign and to shoot his screenplay before completely losing his vision. He would like to be able to make the film and see the completed project with his own two eyes. And so without any further hesitation, join me in